How you guys doing? So good to see you. It feels cold out there. I was thinking, oh. I have many different instruments I'm going to be playing for you today. The one thing we should do is to feel comfortable at any point you want to ask questions. Raise your hand and we'll stop to answer those questions. I will stop. Talking will stop because I'm used to having a big band behind me. I'm going to start with a song that is an old song from one of my CDs, but it talks about the cultural difference between Ithaca and New York, where I reside right now, and Uganda, where I grew up. In Uganda, if you're getting married, you tell the wife you're going to marry that you will provide, which means you're going to bring a lot of meat on the table. If you say that in Ithaca, where I reside, you don't get married at all. You have to say things like, I'll bring you sprouts. I'll bring you tofu. That's how you make friends in Ithaca. You have to pretend you're a vegetarian. Uganda. It's a language spoken by the people called the Baganda. They come from Uganda and from a small place called Buganda. So it's Luganda spoken by the Baganda who come from Buganda. But English is the main language in Uganda because we have 40 different tribes and each tribe has their own language. So when the British came, they decided English is going to be your main language. So following the British, English is the main language in Uganda.
Say that, Mom? What was that instrument you just played?
That is a kalimba. Yes, and I'm playing many different kalimbas. The one you just heard is one that I was given when I was here maybe 3 years. I've been here since '87. That was one of the first instruments that I played that were not originally from Uganda. And these instruments give you a new song each time you play them. But this particular one has given me so many songs. So you'll see it many times. Usually it's like 2, 3 songs from an instrument. But this one keeps singing. I'm gonna play you a song I wrote for my daughter. She wrote to me and said, "Daddy, how can I become the best pianist overnight? I don't want to do any homework." Sawa yote natuka, sawa yoyo kutangala, sawa yote natuka, oh tena tuka. Sawa yote natuka, sawa yoyo kutangala, sawa yote natuka, oh tena tuka. He was wondering when I first started, I was shaking the instrument. I was hearing some vibration. So probably there's a mic inside that is loose, so I was just positioning it in the right place, so the bands could stop.
What it was.
Yes.
So, what is the summary of the words that
The summary. So I'm telling God that that you do your best. Your time to shine is yet to come. That's basically what I'm saying.
Has she started with piano lessons?
She's an amazing musician. She lives in Cape Town. She's a piano teacher. And I had never really heard her perform because I travel and she lives there. And but recently I was producing someone in Cape Town, and we went into the townships in her home, and she started to sing and perform, and I was filming and I couldn't even finish. I was just crying. It was, she's an amazing performer. She hated my music for a long time. She said, "Sorry, Daddy, I don't like that music. I'm so sorry." When she was going to go, can't really, relate. And then one day a professor brought and said, "This is what we're going to study today. This guy is amazing. His name is this and this." And then she was like, "Send me all your CDs from now on." So she just couldn't relate, but from that time on, she thought it was the coolest music. I'm going to play you a song. It's also an old song. It's actually based on a traditional song. It's called Muno Muno. And it's a young man who started growing hair on his chest, and he became arrogant because of the hairs on the chest. And he went to his grandfather's house and said, "Any spirits in this house, come out, I'll challenge you in a wrestling match." And the spirit said, "Who is that? We've been here a long time." So when he had the big voice, he went and shaved off all the hair. He just wanted to be a little kid again. He didn't want to fight the spirit. So this is a song to teach you to be humble, even when you have little hairs on your chest. very much. I grew up, I spent a lot of time with my grandfather. My dad's side of the family are all accountants. And on my mother's side, that's where the music comes from. So I spent a lot of time with my grandfather where the music came from. And he played a lot of flute. Every day when he played the flute would wake up the monkeys and the squirrels and the birds from the forest. It was a beautiful sound to hear, you know. And sometimes we'd take walks into the forest and disappear and just come back, you know, finding all these different kinds of fruits. Forest was always a good place to go. But when my grandfather would play the flute, it's a sound also we hated because we knew we had to wake up and try, you know, start doing work. But those days, things were so beautiful also because we had a king in Uganda, and that's, you know, the first time I was exposed to music was when I was a little kid going to the king's palace. And there was a lot of music around every day with musicians, you know, entertaining the king. Whether he listened or not, they just kept on playing it the whole day long. We also had, every morning, the crested crane would come, and as little kids would sing for it, you know, Nali, Sabasari, Nali, Sabasari, Zamwana, Nali. And it's the crested crane would just do this beautiful dance. But, you know, now that I'm older, I realize he was just trying to mate with a female. I thought he was dancing to our songs. But that thick forest disappeared. Right now, you know, I had to leave Uganda because of the political problems we had in the country. And I moved to a country called Kenya. And then later on moved to the United States because of the problems we had, you know, in Uganda. And so time came and I was, invited to go back to Uganda. And my dream was to see that forest. But when I went back, the forest is all gone. There are houses everywhere, roofs everywhere, not a single tree. They've been cut down. So I asked my son, who is actually also, he's an economist. He took my father's side of the family. I asked him, where can I see the forest? Where is the forest still in Uganda? And he said there's a place called Windy. In Windy, western part of Uganda, you can find the forest still there. And there are mountain gorillas. And I'm a photographer, so I said, oh, that's exciting. I'll go see the mountain gorillas. So you pay $500 to see these mountain gorillas for 1 hour. And because there are only about 700 remaining, you know, without being in zoos, or at least lowland, there are a little bit more, but the mountain gorillas are disappearing because the forest is being cut down, and also people were hunting them in the past for trophy and things like that, and also for bushmeat. So I asked, the people who, eventually I went there, but I asked the people, the rangers, how will I know when I get close to these mountain gorillas? The first question was, are there snakes there? They said, it's a forest, my friend. And I have a serious snake phobia. So they said also that when you see these mountain gorillas, every once in a while, you will see one that is pissed off because they just kicked it out of the group, and he might be aggressive. I said, so do I run as fast as I can? They said, no, you let him beat up on you for a while. Until he gets tired. He's just trying to show he's the boss. So I was like, okay, so that first time I went there, I've been there many times since then. This time I went with young people. There were 2 young Americans who we met there. And we were supposed to be 8 in the group, but somehow, for some reason, we ended up being 3 of us. And these people ended up, when we found this mountain gorilla, they ended up saying, oh my goodness, he's so cute, he's so cute. And I stood so far away from them because I knew I was going to run if he started beating up on them. Luckily enough, he didn't beat up on them. And so I said, how are we really going to know we are now close to this mountain gorilla? They said, every morning they put in the bed that they slept in the night before. They make a new bed every night, wherever they go. But they all take turns and poo everywhere in their nests, just to mess it up for some reason. So I said, that's what we look for. They said, actually, you look for steaming poo. So we started looking for it. And at one point I thought they were steaming. No, that's not steaming enough. So we eventually came across the steaming one and said, okay, now they're nearby. So, and at that point, you forget the fear of snakes. So anything you're afraid of, you're just like, and so they say, pull up your camera, take off the flash, just when you get close to them, make the sounds they're making, which is like, and that's a friendly sound. So we got close and closer and closer, and you don't realize whether there's snake or anything, you're not afraid anymore, because these things are huge, humongous, they're big, the silverback is huge, and he's checking everybody, looking in the eyes to see who is going to be, who's going to be the bad one, who's going to hurt my family. And then when he realizes you're all pretending to be eating leaves, we're copying the rangers. Then he's like, oh, it's another species of mountain gorilla, It's a friendly kind. So at that point, there was a little baby mountain gorilla who wanted to, play with us. And the mother kept on pulling him back. And they had just eaten, they were taking a nap. They were tired and, lying down, and the baby was very active. So the baby would climb a tree and the tree would fall. And the mother got tired of that, so she supported the tree with one leg and she took a nap. So the next part of the show, I'm going to play you a bunch of songs. But, and you're going to be seeing some footage of Uganda, footage of even some people, because sometimes when I'm not playing, visiting mountain gorillas or playing for concerts, I bring music into refugee camps. I bring music to former child soldiers. I bring music to people who've been abused in wars in the Congo and other parts of Africa. I have an organization called Musicians for World Harmony, and what we do is to help people sing again using music. So enjoy. questions? Yes, sir.
Would each instrument be handmade that you duplicate that sound on that
It's very difficult to duplicate because they just make them, however they feel that day, and the wood is different each time. So each instrument has its own, sound. To give you an example, this is a very old one. This one I was given when I was traveling in Uganda, and I met a bunch of musicians that were entertaining us. And I said, can I buy an instrument just like that? And the musician said, buy my instrument. And I said, I really can't buy your instrument. I just want something that looks like that. He started getting really mad. He said, buy my instrument. So I bought it, and then the whole band said, buy my instrument. So I came home with about 10 of them. And I asked the old lady in the audience, what am I going to do? I'm taking the music away from the village. She said, don't worry, we're all going to get drunk tonight, So I'm going to give you a little sound on this instrument. Teri chama, teri chenja musimuno, teri chenja, utonzi yampa mani, chitangi yampa mani, teri chenja. That one is a sad, but also positive at the same time story. It's a young man who was being kidnapped with his dad in this village. And the rebels that came to take them met the father carry him. And they knew the father would get tired. And as soon as the father got tired, they told the boy, get rid of your dad. Anyway, the story ends, he gets rid of, the dad said, I bless you, you're blessed. Whatever is going to happen, you'll be a happy person, don't worry about it. And he ended up escaping when he was about 15 years old, and he forgave the rebels, and that gave him positive energy to move on with his life, instead of being held with a lot of anger. And so it's a story of how forgiveness sometimes helps you to move forward, instead of holding it inside. It's a true story. This young man, he was northern Uganda. This is another one. This is over 100 years old. And this one actually I do a lot of documentary soundtracks. And this one I used for a soundtrack for a lady called Wangari Maathai. Wangari Maathai, she passed away recently. She was a Nobel Peace Prize winner. And she helped people plant trees in Kenya. And also, a lot of people are planting trees because of this woman. And for me, she's very inspiring because she did not give up when everybody was trying to force her to give up this dream of teaching women how to plant trees. And as you hear this one, it has rattles. They're supposed to be all over the instrument, but some guys would ask me, is that broken? So I took off some of them, But they're supposed to be on all the keys. In this part of the film, she was asked to go get water as a little girl. But instead of getting water, she started playing with frog eggs. Say, yeah, yeah, yeah. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Selina silinge sekere, Selina silinge sekere, Selina silinge sekere. Joka siga bangako, era siga beko, watu jamfanazo. Whoa, 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 yeah, yeah, yeah. Whoa, whoa, whoa. I have a problem. I can't hear you singing, guys. Are you singing? Is the music loud enough? I don't see anybody even feeling it. You're free to let your body move. Let's try it again. Selina silinge sekere, Selina silinge sekere, Selina silinge sekere. Joka siga bangako, era siga beko, watu jamfanazo. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Selina silinge fufu, Selina silinge fufu, Selina silinge fufu. Joka siga bangako, era siga beko, watu jamfanazo. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Chokka sigabangako, era sigabeko, watu nyamfanazo. Oh, 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 yeah, yeah, yeah. 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 Oh, oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh, thank you. This one is called Litungu, and the body is made out of goat skin, and the strings are fishing lines, and then wood on the side. And one night I was bored in the middle of the night, and I decided to be productive, so I put on a microphone on the bridge. I created a new bridge for it so that people could hear it better. Basically, I'm a nerd. I like electronics. And, but I think what I'm doing is going to save these instruments, because young people in Uganda and other parts are giving up all the traditional instruments. They're all picking up guitars. And part of it because they're so quiet and nobody can hear it. If you mute it, just mute it for a second. This is how this instrument sounds. So they won't be heard, and people want to be heard, you know? So they pick up a guitar which can be really loud. But this is how this instrument sounds now. When I left Uganda and I became a refugee in Kenya, you know, one thing that missed in the refugee camp was music. There was no music. It was kind of a sad refugee camp. And, you know, and my dream when I got out of there was, when I get out of here, is the one thing I'm going to do is to bring music into refugee camps, if I get a chance to do that. In this refugee camp we stayed in Kenya, was way up in, you know, in the bushes, you know, actually kind of a desert-like thing. So you couldn't even escape to come to the city to have a life. And one thing that we all did at night was to watch a show called Dallas. There was one TV in the refugee camp, only one big TV, and everybody at night would sit there and watch Dallas, and the mosquitoes would be biting us, and you know, and so you're watching Dallas, and when JR would become mean or something, people go, oh, JR. And most of them were repeats, so we'd see the same show again and again and again, but it didn't matter that much. In the refugee camp, you know, it doesn't matter whether you're a doctor, a lawyer, or an engineer. You're all the same. So that was really a good thing for me, actually. It showed me that we are all human beings. And in fact, the most important person in the refugee camp there where I was a guy whose name was Sandy. His name was Sandy. Sandy was a beggar from the streets. In most African countries, if you're disabled, if you have polio or something like that, you end up not going to school. So which means you end up in the streets begging for money. So Sandy was an expert from the streets. He had so many stories from the streets that everyone at night would say, Sandy, take us out of this camp. And he would give us one story. He never repeated a story. He had one story after another. And he would, we didn't have money, we had beans. So he'd say, put beans in any pocket you want. He'd slap you on the face and the beans would be gone, you know? So he knew he was teaching us how to pickpocket. So watch it when you get close to me tonight. Anyway, this is a long, long time ago in 1983. That's when I was in the refugee camp. Recently, I was invited to perform in Ojai, California. And after I performed, the organizers asked me, would you mind fundraising, doing a fundraiser for us? I said, no problem. So he says, there will be very, very rich people. I said, that's good, that's fine. And so I ended up, driving, following all these cars, going up the mountain. And windy hill, we went up, 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 up. And, the drop-off was just like, if you felt, you wouldn't survive. And we reached somewhere where the gates opened by themselves, saying, welcome to heaven. And walked in, I was like, oh my goodness. So I walked around the house, and I was like, wow, this is incredible. And there was a giant swimming pool this size of this whole house, in the middle of the house, and the rain could drain and right onto people swimming. Anyway, this house went on, and you couldn't see any other house nearby or away. So as I was walking around, I realized in every room there was JR. I was in JR's house. It was actually his home. So I just thought, like, man, if I could have gone back and told those people in the refugee camp, I'm going to meet that guy, nobody would have believed me. The litungu. Sorry, I'll tell a quick story about the litungu. This is a Kenyan instrument, it's a harp, it's called litungu. And after I left the refugee camp, I was driving a friend's car in Nairobi, and I saw this old musician walking in the middle of the street trying to cross. And I said, I need to meet that guy. I had this thing like, you got to meet him, you have to meet this guy. So I stopped in the middle of the street, and cars were honking like, get out of the way, bam, bam. And the guy started freaking out. The musician, he's like hearing all the horns, thinking it's him, they're honking at him. So he's trying to go back, but he couldn't go back because he was in the island, trying to cross. He'd made it in the middle. So I got out of my car and started to pull him, and he freaked out. I was trying to pull him into the car. When that didn't work, I started to push him into the car, and he freaked out, and he was trying to run away from me. He's a tall, old guy, very old. So I gave up and went back into my car. And just before I drove away, I said, let me try one more time, So when he saw me coming, this time he wanted to just jump into traffic, like this is a crazy man trying to kill me. And I went and said, I'm a musician. He said, you should have said that the first time, So he jumped into the car front seat, and I took him home and made him tea. And he drank the hot tea, and we talked and talked and talked, and we became really good friends, So I dropped him off, and I said, when can I see you again? So we said, I'll see you in exactly 1 month's time, and we identified this tree where I could meet him. And I waited for him half the day, and then soon I saw him. He looked like the ground opened up and he came out. And he was holding this instrument and another one, and he said, I brought you a gift. And this is something I played when I was a little kid. So I took him home, made him more tea, and we talked and talked and talked. A few years later, I ended up in Ithaca, New York, and everybody said, you need to meet this ethnomusicologist. He'll be so happy to meet a musician from Uganda. And the professor, his shoes were all bent on one side, his hair going in every direction, really a scary guy. Professors in Uganda dress really sharp, and professors in Ithaca are crazy guys, they have hair everywhere, shoes are old, So anyway, the professor took me into the basement and started pulling out cassettes and said, hey, from East Africa. Plugged in the cassette, it was the old man saying his name and playing this instrument. Way before I was born. So here we go. This is a song called Waterfall. Before I end this song, I want you to join me a little bit. Let's try be on the beat, okay? Be on the beat. Let's try it. That's fine. Try something like this. Hey, 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 hey. Oh, 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 oh. Okay, there are two things. One of them, hey, 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 hey. Okay, there you go. So don't come in until I tell you when to come. I'm gonna make this one short. Sajja watunga agenda azaala omulenzi. Sajja watunga agenda azaala omulenzi. Nasalawo ntono gwenzadde. Abeera dattaali. Nasalawo ntono gwenzadde. Anavuga nnyonyi. Nasalawo no gwenzadde. abera mukinkyaki kyamugwako omwana asazeho okubeera mugoma. All right, now you're going to sing with me that part, okay? Hey, 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 hey. Not after me, with me. You know I'm going to talk about you when I go back. So hey, 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 hey. Keep singing. Thank you. When I first came, I met really an interesting musician called, I've met a few musicians. I've been very lucky over the years I've been here. A few musicians have helped me get to where I am. One of the groups that really changed my life is a group called Lady Smith Black Mambazo. They took me on the road with them when I first came here. We shared the same manager, but they allowed me to go on the road with them everywhere. And they taught me how to behave on the road. Every night we'd finish performing and we'd get back on the tour bus. And they'll be, they would say, Samite, put on Pee-wee. So we watched Pee-wee Hammond the whole trip. And again and again and again, the same one, you know, they'll go, Pee-wee, yeah, Pee-wee, you know. But everywhere I went, people would tell me, you need to meet this guy called Pete Seeger. And I said, who is this guy? Everybody keeps talking about Pete. So one day I was home and the phone rings. And I say, hey Samite, I'm Pete Seeger. You've been asking about me. And so a few, we spent hours and hours singing. I said, Pete, everybody talks about you. I don't know who you are, you know? And people say my performances remind them of you. You know, who are you? What kind of music do you do? So Pete Seeger spent the whole hour, 2 hours singing me all his music, and I'd be, I know that one too. That's yours, yeah, that's mine. So we went through that all the time. So he invited me to his house, and we spent hours talking, and we became really good friends. And he asked me, he said, I advise you one thing: you need to fire your management. And so I ended up firing the management, which was kind of a good thing, because he said you need to be able to perform to people who can't afford to pay. You need to bring your music into refugee camps. And those guys who managed me at that time would not let me play in small places. It was only big places that could afford to pay a lot of money. So that was a very powerful thing, and I was very lucky that I met him, because I've been able to bring music into, like I said, into refugee camps to help people sing again. I go in areas where people are really sad, and the music helps them, that I play a little bit, and they say, you sit down, we're going to sing for you now. And it doesn't matter how sick they are. It doesn't matter who they are. This organization, Musicians for World Harmony, has afforded me to go into these places to bring music to them. Check it out when you have a chance, musiciansforworldharmony.org. Recently, I just got remarried. Recently, so at that point you're supposed to clap. Thank you. My first wife died of a brain tumor, And so that was a sad time, and I didn't think I'd be able to date again. And also, I was dating, I was like a little man messing up everything, starting again. So my dream was to, when you see in the movies when, the guy is rowing the boat and the woman is sitting on the other side, I said, this next time I propose, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to sit on the boat and my fiancé is going to be on the other side. And I'm going to propose that way and say, check this out. So I performed in a place called Mohawk where they have a lake. And I was like, that's my chance to do this. The problem is I don't swim. So I went down and asked the woman who was controlling the boats, and I said, how do you move the boat forward? So she told me this is what you do. I said, how do you turn it around to come back? So one side, you put more power on one side, and then you turn around. I said, easy, do you have a life jacket? So it was a lake, a really actually significant kind of lake. So I got my fiancé on the boat, and my girlfriend then, and we went, and it was just beautiful. And then there was a rock, and I just passed the rock. I just kind of went like, this was feeling so good. All of a sudden there was a guy on the shore said, did you see the rock? I said, yeah, I did. No problem. He said, you're going to have a Titanic experience in a few minutes. There are rocks here. I said, what? He said, there are rocks. You're going to hit rocks and sink that boat. And at that moment, I forgot everything they told me. And I started going around, and the boat was going around and around. And I started getting really sick. So I had to lie flat and look up. And I'm thinking I'm going to sink. I'm dying, I forgot I had a life vest. And my girlfriend had to roll me back. And to make matters worse, all the women were screaming like, yay! On the shore. So I didn't pull out the ring. So when we got on the shore, it took me a very long time to recover. I had to lie down there. I was really, really sick. It was so bad. Anyway, the next day, I had to redeem myself. There was some pedal boats. I said, let me take you on the pedal boats. Anyway, that's the story of my life right now. So I'm going to ask you, raise your hand if you're in love. Okay, there's a problem. Some people are just going like this. It's usually men, but this time I'm seeing some women doing this. We're in trouble tonight. Let's raise your hand if you're in love. I'm giving you another chance. Oh my goodness. Okay. I'm going to sing you a love song. This is a love song that my mother taught me. It's called Ndere. Ndere is a love song that my mother is a very interesting woman. She lives with me in Ithaca, New York. And this poor woman had never seen snow before, and in Ithaca we get serious snow. When she came, we had a blizzard. All the cars were covered up. And she said, is that water? I said, yes, it's frozen. She said, is it going to melt? I said, yeah. When it gets warm, it's going to melt. So she looked at me. She's kind of a short woman. She looked at me, what am I going to do? I don't swim. So I realized this woman is terrified of the water, the snow. I used it to control her. Okay, here we go. Ndere ndere mwala wange ndere kwe wangamba ndere 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 mwala wange ndere kwe Sekati kano ndere sikalungi kalwadde ndere kabera muntu ndere kekali ntutte ndere 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 muwala wange ndere gwe waŋŋamba ndere tisekati kano ndere sikalungi kalwadde ndere kabera muntu ndere kekali ntutte ndere ndere muwala wange ndere gwe waŋŋamba ndere 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 muwala wange ndere gwe waŋŋamba ndere. Thank you. Yes. My mom's family, they all sing, and they challenge each other, singing harmonies and who does better. So even up to now, she sings all the time. I could get her on the phone if you want and get her to sing. If I don't tell her that people listening, she would start singing right away. I've done it before. I just put her on the phone. I say, Mom, do you want this song? And she goes, she starts singing. Do it? She can't hear you. She won't sing. 6 of them. She's 87.
Hello?
Olgan.
Wani?
Ndina oluyimba lwe njagala okuyimba olulala ebigambo byerabidde lule lule
Lule lulono.
gaali bunduka
Lule lulono.
gaali bunduka
Mama yasimumulawo.
gaali bunduka
Engana okukima okuba. Engana okukola. Mama okukima omulawo.
gaali bunduka
Mama nakuba omulawo.
gaali bunduka
Nemuka nengwa mutaka.
gaali bunduka
Jata
jata gaali bunduka
Jata.
gaali bunduka olwo luwoomye ate mpozi olulala luki lwe tuyimba Gundi. Ni Anna, luyimba kiro tuyimba ne Anna. Kamungolo. Okay. Darling, no problem. Kamungolo, zendigenda n'ensawo yange, kamungolo. Kamungolo, zendigenda n'ensawo yange, kamungolo. Kamungolo, zendigenda n'ensawo yange. Kamungolo, zendigenda n'ensawo yange. Kamungolo. Yeah, okay. Webale, thank you. Bye.
Would you translate the song you're saying?
Which one?
The love song.
The love song. It's about a young girl who was being married off to an ugly old chief. And she decided to walk off into the forest crying like, oh, you know, and really sad. So in the forest she found a beautiful tree. And she came home and said, Mom, I found this tree. If this tree could turn into a human being, I'd marry that tree and marry the old chief. And so the mother went with her and said, show me the tree. And she said, come back and sing to this tree every day. Maybe magic will happen. So what happens, one day she was singing, and there was a young man hiding behind the tree, and he married off before the village chief. And they lived happily ever after. Musiciansforworldharmony.org.
You're on Facebook. People should know that.
Yes, I'm on Facebook, and I would love to hear from you. Maybe say, what do they say? Like me or something. Yeah. That would be really helpful. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Is there some place where we can find out where you may be performing in the future?
Actually on Facebook, and also on my website, samite.com. We are doing an amazing tour. I don't know, there's a film called Alive Inside. Have you ever seen it? It's about an old man in a nursing home who had lost it completely. He couldn't even recognize his family. He just was shaking like this. And they talked to the daughter and said, what music did he listen to when he was young? And they put that music on headphones. And he just became alive. He sat up straight. And he started telling stories of what things used to be like. And he just totally recognized everybody. And so they're finding that music actually connects the side of the brain that had for dementia and people are sick. If you bring music that people used to listen to, you can connect, people that way. You can heal them that way. At least help them, relax and remember the good times. So I did some work with that in that film where we was playing for some, ladies, especially one particular lady who was very, very sick and very sad. And I played the litungu, and she just, there's one scene where she just takes off her necklace and puts it on me. And she, just the music is just showing the healing power of music, this film. And so we're doing a tour, a 25-city tour, starting in March, ending in May. We'll probably come in this area, so look out for it. It's going to be, with this film and us performing, and also a very powerful writer, a doctor who came up with the idea of helping senior citizens in a nursing home that they're not really sick, they're just very lonely. They need music and attention. So it's going to be an amazing tour that is going to go all around the US. So you can go to samite.com and check it out. And write on Facebook, and we can start actually chatting and talking about it. That would be really cool. Another question. Yes.
The gentleman that gave you
The Litungu.
yeah, is he still with us?
He cannot be still with us. He was very, very old, and this is 1983. He definitely could not be alive right now. Definitely. Yeah. So we're coming close to the end of the show. Unless you have questions. Yes. Yes. Thank you for reminding me that. And those CDs don't work unless I sign them. Thank you. So let's see what we do here. Say, aye, 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 oh mama, aye, aye, oh mama, aye, aye, oh tata, aye, aye, oh tata. Aye, aye, choka mama. Aye, aye, choka mama. Aye, aye, choka tata. Aye, aye, choka tata. So this song I'm going to play for you, you can clap, but you can also get up and warm up a little bit. It's the last song, and if you want to dance, we have a saying that music is wasted if you don't dance. So this is up to you, really. Greg, give me the beat. It's the last song, so you can get up and dance a little bit.